Rananim, hello and welcome to Cobbs Corner. To our listeners here in Micronesia and in Asia and Oceania, good morning. Thank you for waking up early with us. To our listeners back in the States, good afternoon or good evening. It's officially been 2 weeks. As I said, Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs will be a bi weekly live stream. So a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. Before I get into anything, related to like TV, film, and pop culture, just a bit of a brief life update, really quick, real quick. Um, I'm 4 weeks in. I officially completed my first 4 weeks as a teacher, and I've learned a lot. And I'm sort of readjusting. I've been learning as I go and readjusting my teaching methods and strategies as I've gone on. This is definitely a learning experience. I've learned as much about myself as I have about the students as well. So, Xavier High School, thank you so much for this opportunity. This has been a wild, not a wild ride. This has been a very, very fun experience. I'm just mute my phone notifications. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Last Sunday I went to Pfeffin. Shout out to again to listen to the FSM. Anybody who's from Pfeffin or has got folks out in Pfeffin. Salute. Really, really beautiful island. We got to attend the mass there, and then we went snorkeling, which I'm probably never going to do again because open ocean and water and corals. Yeah, I think my snorkeling days are behind me. I will go snorkeling in a pool. Start out in a pool, right? We'll start out in pools of water. I made the mistake of mentioning how I've been swimming since I was 3. Um, that was at a pool at a YMCA. So I will go snorkeling in a pool first, and then maybe go off the coast of maybe like a beach area, not in the open ocean, in the Choop Lagoon. No, never doing that again. But yeah, fun time. Fun time. It's been a fun couple of weeks. Went to this place, Lucky Fast Food. Shout out to Lucky Fast Food here on the island of Weta in Chuk. Shout out to the U.S. Marines. We had Marines staying at the truck stop hotel for the past couple of months, and Marines they've recently, I think they just left this weekend, Friday or Saturday. So one of them complimented me on my John Wick shirt. I was wearing a John Wick shirt that says Baba Yaga. You wanted me back. Now I'm back. So shout out to you. You know who you are. And that's pretty much my life the past 2 weeks. Made it to the middle of the quarter. This quarter has really flown by. It's been really, school year's been flying by. Middle of the quarter already. Can't believe it. In other news, since we've last spoken, we've gotten 2 episodes of Ahsoka. Episodes 4 and 5. Episode 4 was Fallen Jedi. And in episode 4, we got to see Ahsoka do sort of like a lightsaber battle with against, I want to get the characters' names correctly, Balin and Shin. Balin and Balin Skull and Shin Hati. I think those are names from Norse mythology, if I'm not mistaken. And as Balin was looking for the other galaxy, because I think I mentioned in like a previous episode how there's another galaxy outside of the Star Wars galaxy, like beyond the Outer Rim. So they've really expanded the universe of Star Wars, literally like expanding the Star Wars universe and Star Wars lore. Still no sign of Thrawn, even after episodes 4 and 5. Like, where's Thrawn in all this? We see Sabine use her lightsaber, even though Sabine is sort of, I guess, a non-traditional Jedi. And it's confirmed that people who maybe are not traditional Jedi can have knowledge of the Force. Like Ahsoka really hits that home. Like it was kind of alluded to in The Last Jedi, which is, in my opinion, the most divisive, the most divisive Star Wars movie. Coincidentally, I just rewatched The Last Jedi last weekend. We do see we saw Princess Leia, or General Organa. We see her use the Force in The Last Jedi, although she's not technically a Jedi. She it was confirmed in Return of the Jedi that she had, or in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that she had knowledge of the Force, that she might have been Force sensitive. Although in Episode 7, it was confirmed that she did not train to become a Jedi. That was the one question I had going into the sequel trilogy, going into Episode 7 is, did Princess Leia train to become a Jedi? Official short answer, no. Long answer, she was Force sensitive and she had knowledge of the Force, but she never formally went ahead with any sort of Jedi training. So Princess Leia did not become a Jedi like her brother and her father before her. And we're seeing Sabine sort of be the Padawan kind of Ahsoka. And we see Sabine use a lightsaber, and Hu Yang, shout out to, David Tennant. David Tennant is amazing as Hu Yang. He mentions how there's very few Mandalorians that have actually been able to make the transition to Jedi. So yeah, I mean, nice little reunion. We get to see Jason, Hera and Kanan's son. Jason Syndulla, played by Evan Whitten. And it's funny, at the end of part 4, when Baylan and Shin escape, with that orb, they destroy the orb that was given them like the location to the other galaxy. They go through hyperspace. They send that like Stargate through, into hyperspace, and it causes like such a big shockwave because they're literally traveling from one galaxy to the next. It caused like a huge shockwave of like cosmic proportions that we've never seen before in the Star Wars universe. So it sends a bunch of the X-wing ships back, and then Jason says that iconic line, said, "Mom, I have a bad feeling." It's like, got a bad feeling about this. So that was part 4. Part 5. Oh, and at the end of part 4, we see how Ahsoka ends up in the world between worlds, which is a different realm in Star Wars. World between worlds, sort of, kind of time travel of sorts. It's explained more. I think the world between worlds, it shows up more in Rebels. Again, I have to go back and like actually watch Rebels. Like, shout out to New Rockstars and Eric Voss for doing their like summary breakdown of like Rebels seasons 1 through 4 in preparation for Ahsoka. But me personally, I would have to actually sit down and watch Rebels and like watch each episode of Star Wars Rebels. I made it to like the middle of the second season. Like I watched the first season in real time, and I watched part of season 2 in real time as well. But yeah, on Disney Plus, I do plan on like actually going and watching all of Rebels. Passion project of mine. She sees a de-aged Hayden Christensen. He's like de-aged to resemble what would have been Ahsoka's last memory of Anakin, like maybe right before Order 66 in Return of the Jedi. And they revisit the Battle of Ryloth, I think, which was like season 1 or 2 of Clone Wars. And we actually get to see Ariana Greenblatt, who Marvel fans will remember her as the actress who played young Gamora in Avengers Infinity War back in 2018. She also recently showed up in Barbie. So she plays the young Ahsoka Tano. This like Clone Wars era Ahsoka Tano. In this flashback scene, we get to see the Battle of Ryloth, and we see the Jedi ATT, which would eventually evolve into the Empire's AT-AT or AT-AT. So we get to see like a bit of like live action Clone Wars, which I think that's not really something that we've seen in live action. Stuff that's happened like in the Clone Wars era of Star Wars between episodes 2 and 3, between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Like there's a whole 8-year time gap between episodes 2 and 3 of Star Wars, and we haven't seen a whole lot of that in live action. I mean, we've now seen the World Between Worlds in live action, and it was nice to get these flashback sequences. The second flashback sequence is we see now Anakin wasn't there, but the Siege of Ryloth, the Siege of Mandalore, the Siege of Mandalore, which I think was in season 7 of Clone War, the season 7 of the Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore. Which again, now I gotta watch Clone Wars because Siege of Mandalore, and the dialogue between like I guess young Ahsoka and Anakin was really spot on. It's funny, Anakin said like, "You look old," to which Ahsoka responds like, "Well, that happens." And then this show ended with Ahsoka being rescued from the water. It's unclear how long she actually was lost in the water. I mean, she didn't like cough up water or anything. It's unclear exactly how long she was in the World Between Worlds. I guess when you're in the World Between Worlds, time works differently. Apparently, she was out for one whole rotation, however long that is, because Star Wars is like an entire galaxy, so time works differently depending on what planet you're on. So they have to have like a centralized system of time. So like rotations. It's not like on Earth where we have, days, years, months. It's not the same on other planets. Even in the real world, like a day on Earth is not the same as a day on Venus or on Mars or Jupiter. So yeah. And then Ahsoka escapes from the New Republic after Hera has gone. After Hera pretty much went AWOL, and they're able to escape inside a Purgle, inside a space whale. Part 5, there was no Sabine, was absent from the episode. Sabine, along with Balin Skull and Shin Hati. Oh, and Morgan Elsbeth. Yeah, Morgan Elsbeth. How could I forget the most perfectly named character in the series? Hands down, my favorite character. Okay. Big shout out to Diana Lee Inosanto, who I've also heard that that Diana Lee Inosanto, who plays Morgan Elsbeth, she's actually Bruce Lee's goddaughter. So, big ups to the late Bruce Lee, R.I.P. But yeah, Diana Lee Inosanto has, done a phenomenal job with the episodes that she has been a part of. Maybe we'll see her on this week's episode, maybe on episode 6. We got 3 episodes left, folks. We're more than halfway through this series. It's only 8 episodes. We got 6, 7, and 8 to go. I think we got like 6, 7, and 8, and then like there's Loki season 2 starts October 6th. So, I may be on the other side of the planet, outside the United States, but thank God for Wi-Fi and internet access, so I'm able to kind of stay within the loop, so to speak. I'm able to kind of keep myself in the loop, not be totally off the grid, although I do think it is kind of okay to kind of skate now and again, maybe go 24 hours without your phone, without all these notifications. Today's actually Sunday. Sunday, I don't know if I mentioned this. Sunday is my day away from social media. I go in and I disable all my social media apps for 24 hours. Like on Android, there's a way you can like select the apps and disable them. Like I will pause the app and it will not reopen until midnight tonight, not until midnight Monday. So 24 hours, no notifications, no posting, no scrolling, no commenting, no liking. Closed on Sunday. Um, but yeah, Ahsoka, been a great series so far. I'm not going to finish Rebels or Clone Wars before watching Ahsoka, but once I have watched all of Rebels and all of Clone Wars, I do plan on going back. And again, this long-term passion project, going back to maybe possibly going back to like the beginning and going back to the beginning of like the Disney Plus live action series, going back to season 1 of Mandalorian, and like with all the knowledge that I now have at that point, or will have, of Clone Wars and Rebels and all the lore with like Mandalorians and the House of Ren and all that, rewatching Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2, and then because season 2 we do see Ahsoka. That's the first time that we see Ahsoka. We see Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. She's introduced in season 2 of Mandalorian for the 1 episode. Then she mentions like, where's Grand Admiral Thrawn, and so that's the first time we see Ahsoka in live action. And then season 2 was really kind of a teaser. The post-credit scene at the end of season 2 was a teaser for the Book of Boba Fett. Which a lot of fans said they didn't like it. I liked it. I liked the Book of Boba Fett. I liked its exposition. I liked, all that. So yeah, Book of Boba Fett, and her and Mando showed up for the 1 episode in Book of Boba Fett. So it was kind of a teaser for Ahsoka as well as Mandalorian season 3. Then we got Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor season 1. Speaking of which, looking forward to Andor season 2. I think that's set to come out next year. So Star Wars, they still got an exciting future. Ahsoka, Andor season 1, Mandalorian season 3, and then Ahsoka. So I do plan on doing that rewatch, and I will be done with it by Christmas 2030. But if any of you are listening to this episode and, years in the future, and Christmas 2030 has already passed, just know I have definitely done that rewatch. All right. And shame on you, future Morgan, if Christmas 2030 has come around and you've made all these promises in 2023 saying that you would watch this, this, and this by Christmas 2030, and you haven't. Shame on you. So yeah, that's all I got on Ahsoka parts 4 and 5. Can't wait for episode 6. Next item on the agenda. Now, I grew up in the 2000s, and so I'm old enough to remember a time when you had to watch television and watch, cable was a thing. I can remember as early as like maybe first grade. It's like there were different, I don't want to say cliques, but different like kind of fandoms at the school I went to for kindergarten and first grade. Highville Mustard Seed Charter School of International Studies. I don't know if the name has changed since then, but shout out to Highville. Shout out to my kindergarten teacher, Miss Pizzuto, and my first grade teacher, Miss Sword. I just want to give them their flowers. I can remember there was like the anime crowd. There were kids who watched One Piece, kids who watched Naruto and like Dragon Ball Z. This is in first grade. This is back when, like, I think it used to come on like 4Kids TV and 4Kids TV, and then there was also on Cartoon Network as well. At the time, I was definitely at like the height of my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and Teen Titans phase. Like that was like my childhood in a nutshell. The 2003 Ninja Turtles series, which I personally think is the best series. I think I've talked about it in past episodes. Um, Generation gap. I was not alive for the 1987 series. Um, what else? Power Rangers. Because what kid didn't? I mean, did you really have a childhood if you never watched Power Rangers? I mean, I mean, you know. And the third was Teen Titans, the original Teen Titans, not the Max live action Titans, not the Cartoon Network Teen Titans Go, nonsense. I also had kids. I also had whoa. Scratch that. I also had friends. Right? there were students in my class who had watched wrestling. Pro wrestling. The WWE. Right? So yeah, they kind of put me onto the wrestlers of like the top, wrestlers of like the mid 2000s. This was like 2006, 2007. So Booker T, Rey Mysterio, John Cena, who's still around. He's been wrestling my whole life. I mean, he's been wrestling professionally since 2002. So, I mean, so yeah, I mean, the past week I've just been kind of sitting in my office when I'm not working for the 5 minutes a day where I'm not working. All right. I would just watch old wrestling matches on YouTube, and I would think back to how I went to Monday Night Raw live. This was, I think, December 28th, 2009. They were in Hartford, Connecticut at the XL Center. Funny enough, Stamford, Connecticut is where the WWE headquarters is. And, as someone who's from Connecticut, all right, I'm, morally obligated to tune into WWE every now and again as someone who's from Connecticut. The main event that night was a rematch between John Cena and Sheamus for the WWE Championship. We ended up not staying for the full match, but there was also Legacy. There was Randy Orton along with Cody Rhodes and one other person. There was Kofi Kingston versus The Miz. There was, I think, Cody Rhodes versus Mark Henry, World's Strongest Man. There was, he's retired now. D-Generation X was there. D-Generation X and Chris Jericho. I think they had like a whole bit going on outside where like Chris Jericho was like walking around outside with a sign, something about like allow me to join Monday Night Raw or something. The guest host was Timbaland. Timbaland was the guest host for the main event, and it was just a wild experience. It was a really fun experience. Vince McMahon showed up. I think they ended up having Bret the Hitman Hart came back the following Monday, I think, to host the first Monday Night Raw of 2010. And yeah, I just remember being there. I was I was almost 9 years old. I was eight years old. It was like right after Christmas. I'm just like having a blast. It started the night, John Cena walks out. The entire arena just erupts in applause. Like I'll never forget that. It's just like the entire arena just like erupted. It was an electric atmosphere. Yeah, WWE Universe. I played a few of the video games. A couple of I know of some of the guys from like the old era of the Attitude Era, I would say. Right, because there was the Attitude Era in like the 90s and like early 2000s. That's when it was like rated TV 14. And then at some point they downgraded to TV PG maybe I don't know the exact year that they were downgraded from TV 14 to TV PG, but I watched most of the wrestling I watched was like during the PG era. So this was like 2000, maybe from like 2007 up through maybe 2012. Um, and I was kind of a casual watcher. Like I had friends in like fifth grade, fourth grade, fifth grade who were like religious about it, who like were watching Friday Night SmackDown every Friday night. Which really, I was more of a SmackDown watcher. I didn't really watch Monday Night Raw. I never got to watch any of the WrestleManias. Yeah, never. Well, because I was a kid, so and those are like pay-per-view events. So I never watched any like the TLCs or bragging rights or like the ladder matches, Backlash, WrestleMania, Royal Rumble. No, not bad. Watch all the free content, but a lot of those matches are on YouTube now. So I'm able to kind of go back and look at the old WrestleManias and Royal Rumbles, like Royal Rumble 2008 when John Cena was like the 30th entry, you know, and then he ended up winning the Royal Rumble that year in 2008 at Madison Square Garden. So I kind of got to feel like a kid again a bit this past week. And I realized that there's no such thing as retirement in wrestling. Like I realized, like for me, well, this is just my opinion. I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson has had the most successful transition from pro wrestling to acting. All right, he started wrestling in 1996 under the name Rocky Maivia, and then he eventually shortened his name to The Rock. Well, Rocky Maivia, he was paying homage to his father, Rocky Johnson, as well as his maternal grandfather, High Chief Pete Maivia. So him being a third generation professional wrestler, made his debut in 1996. I think it was against Goldust. Just I can't remember exactly who was under, who was against. But The Rock did a whole reaction on his YouTube channel to his very first WWE match, and he rose to fame as the People's Champion. I want to say his first acting gig was The Mummy Returns. Maybe it was the Mummy Returns. And then after that, he did Scorpion King in like early 2000s, and it was Mummy Returns and then Scorpion King. So by the time that he retired from wrestling in 2004, I think he did his very last match April 2004, and he was still kind of young. He was 32 years old. He retires from wrestling. By then, he already had a leading role under his belt, and he decided, I want to pursue acting full time. And he started doing. My introduction to The Rock was really the movie The Game Plan. If any of you remember that movie, the Game Plan. I mean, I've always said it's a rite of passage for action stars to break that mold from the tough guy personas and like having to do like all these like action movies. And for The Rock, it was movies like it was The Game Plan and Tooth Fairy. For Schwarzenegger, it was Kindergarten Cop. For Dave Bautista, it was My Spy. Maybe for Jackie Chan, it was The Spy Next Door. But The Rock, he went on to do comedies, he did action movies, and then 2011, he came out of retirement to host WrestleMania 27. After 7 years, he came back to Monday Night Raw, and he was bald. All the wrestlers that retire, when they come out of retirement, they're always bald. 2010, Shawn Michaels retired at WrestleMania 26. He retired. And a year later, his tag team partner, Triple H, retired from wrestling. Like now Triple H is an interesting case. Triple H, he retired from the ring in 2011, but stayed at the WWE both on-screen and off-screen as an executive. Him being both the on-screen and off-screen husband of Stephanie McMahon, Stephanie McMahon being the daughter of Vince McMahon, the WWE chairman. So him still being a part of the WWE universe, but in a different capacity, him being out of the ring for a number of years. He's bald now. I think they brought back D-Generation X in 2018 for the Saudi Arabia shows. And this at this point, Shawn Michaels had been retired for 8 years, and Triple H retired, quote unquote, for 7 years. So they're always bald when they come out of retirement. I think Ric Flair retired in 2007. They had a whole retirement ceremony for him. He did his final elbow drop in the ring, and I think the man's in like his 80s now. They still inducted him into the WWE Hall of Fame, and he still came out of retirement. So like, yeah, with wrestling, it's like there's no such thing as like permanent retirement. Like I think even at the 2008 Royal Rumble, Rowdy Roddy Piper showed up. I think Rowdy Roddy Piper and Jimmy Superfly Snuka, RIP to both of them. They both came out of retirement. So yeah, I mean, WWE definitely was part of my childhood. Hulk Hogan, that man just went on the Joe Rogan podcast. I was literally watching a video. Shout out to Rated M Wrestling on YouTube. Go check out his platform. He did a reaction video to Hulk Hogan pretty much going on the Joe Rogan Experience and lying about all these made up stories about his time in the WWE, and like, so go check that video out, because man, Hollywood Hogan is like, I think people have also said that he's a racist, and that there's been some racism in the WWE as well. But yeah, I got an opportunity to sort of relive part of my childhood. RIP to the Ultimate Warrior as well. Ultimate Warrior, he passed away, I think, 2014. I think WrestleMania 30, they did a tribute to him. A lot of guys from that era have passed on. Many of them were on steroids. Let's not forget. Mr. Perfect, Andre the Giant. He died of a heart failure, unfortunately. On Andre the Giant, Mr. Perfect, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Ultimate Warrior, Jimmy Snuka, Chris Benoit, man, tragic. Eddie Guerrero had like a heart attack in the middle of the match. So, yeah. And, shout out to any engineers who work with the WWE. I'm sure they've got engineers working for them. Somebody designed that wrestling ring. The wrestling ring is not the same as a boxing ring. I think there's like springs in each corner. There's more padding. So like if you fall down on a wrestling ring, it will not hurt. You got guys jumping from the top rope and top of steel cages. Top of steel cage. It's a long way down. It's a long way down to the ring. So of course they have to have ample cushioning, ample padding. Plus there's a microphone underneath the ring, so all the impact sounds louder. It gives it like more like surround sound. So shout out to any like the pyrotechnicians, the engineers who work with the WWE. Sports engineering, that's a whole field. It's a whole field. The NBA's got engineers. Somebody designed the basketball court, basketball hoop, baseball diamond, home plate, baseball stadiums, like football fields, football stadiums. Somebody designed that field goal. All right. Sports engineering is a whole field. So, So yeah, that was my WWE phase growing up. My next topic, it's in the title, and yeah, my next topic. I'm moving on to like the movies and, in this case, documentaries that I've recently watched. I recently watched a documentary on Netflix. It's called Scout's Honor: The Secret Files of the BSA. Before I go on to this particular segment, just a warning that this documentary definitely contains some explicit content. These are, secrets and like files that the Boy Scouts of America, a youth organization that is near and dear to me and an integral part of my development as a young man, as an adolescent. as an adult in the world. Okay. You know, but this documentary, it gets real. It gets real for a lot of folks. You know, the cases of molestation, cases of sexual abuse, sexual assault, and then the Boy Scouts of America. So I mean, listener discretion is advised. You know, you've been warned. Uh, Before I get into like this documentary, it's only proper, I think, that I give a bit of like context to the Boy Scouts of America as an organization and start off with the positives, positive takeaways for me personally. Boy Scouts of America, I have had nothing but positive experiences with. With the Boy Scouts of America, it has given me the opportunity to meet a ton of amazing, amazing individuals, many of which I still keep in contact with to this day. Um, you know, I definitely want to shout out Ethan Fisk. Ethan Fisk, who was the senior patrol leader in Troop 5. He was the SPL from 2016 to 2017, and he's an artist now. So shout out to you, Ethan Fisk. Shout out to my friend Evan, my friends Evan, Tyler. You know, met a lot of great individuals. Mr. Andruk, Mr. Cochiola. I just want to, give everybody their flowers. You know, give everybody their, shout outs. And, you know, it's an organization that has done for me as well as numerous other, boys around the country, right, around the United States. It has provided us with a safe space where we can express ourselves, and it's taught us skills, survival skills, not just for, the wilderness survival and the camping, that's part of it, but also how to live, upstanding morals, you know, to always do the right thing, especially when nobody's watching, and to be upstanding citizens, be citizens of your community, be citizens of your nation, be citizens of the world, be citizens of planet Earth. I mean, here I am now. I'm teaching at a high school, another part of the world. Um, to be citizens of the world, to be good people, to be good men, and to be law-abiding citizens, and to to be good people. I know I keep on saying that, but yeah, the Boy Scouts of America is definitely, I think, still to this day, a worthwhile organization. It has done so much good for the world. Um, Many former presidents, many of our leaders today, um, are Eagle Scouts or were in Boy Scouts. Um, it's definitely taught me things. I've had experiences. Um, I've had, yeah, I mean, I've had experiences in Boy Scouts that have shaped me into the man I am today. And I've made friends, made a lot of great friends, and a lot of amazing connections with other Boy Scouts, not just in Connecticut, but from around the country. And I still think, in the midst of the recent, you know, secret files of the BSA, which I'm going to get into, I still think that the Boy Scouts of America is a worthwhile organization. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Um, you know, I don't think I've mentioned on the air. I might have mentioned in past episodes that I am, in fact, an Eagle Scout, and that is the highest rank in Boy Scouts. And I forget the exact statistic; it changes, but I want to say less than 5% of Boy Scouts nationwide actually achieve this highest rank of Eagle. So I'm a part of a, I guess, a minority of scouts that actually achieve this rank. Eagle Scouts, not everybody who goes into Boy Scouts achieves Eagle. And I had to do an Eagle project. If you're ever driving through Naugatuck, Connecticut, it's my hometown. Although my troop was in Middlebury, Connecticut. My troop was the next town over, Troop 5 in Middlebury, Connecticut. And I think we met at the Middlebury Congregational Church. My Boy Scout troop was in Middlebury, although I lived in Naugatuck. I lived one town over. For my Eagle project, that experience, like from start to finish, about 2 years. November 2016, we met with the YMCA and approached them about the project of building wooden A-frame signs so that they can advertise events, summer camp registration, open wine night, different events that they had going on. We approached them with the idea for the project, and then I had to get the project approved by the town of Naugatuck. They had to approve the project. I had to get it approved by the town, get, what are the sign regulations and like what materials are we using, get it approved by the town of Naugatuck. Or I'm sure now I'm sure we're considered like an actual town, although on our trash cans it says Borough of Naugatuck. People say, Borough of Naugatuck. Although we do have a mayor and a board of mayor and burgesses. So I'm pretty sure, like, when you look up Naugatuck, type Naugatuck, Connecticut into Google, it will say town in Connecticut, town in the state of Connecticut. So like, I'm sure we're an actual town, but getting approved by the town and then getting it approved and then going through my Eagle Scout project proposal, filling out the proposal. They had like a whole format for you to follow, filling out the proposal, getting into specifics, how many days is it going to take? How much money am I going to need? What materials am I using? Finalizing the proposal, getting the proposal approved by the Eagle Scout. I think each troop has like I get to choose who my project coach is. I chose, again, I want to give you your flowers, Mr. Cochiola, if you're listening, who was also from Naugatuck, Assistant Scoutmaster, Mr. Cochiola. I had chosen him to be my project coach. So getting my proposal approved by my project coach, and then from there getting it approved by the district. I think we had to have like a district, approved by my project coach, approved by, I think, the Scoutmaster, Mr. Andruck. Shout out to Mr. Andruck, the Scoutmaster at the time. He's not the Scoutmaster in Troop 5 anymore. And getting that approval, and then getting, I think, the district approval and the council approval. So like, that was a whole process. That was a whole process. And then that took up most of 2017. Meanwhile, I'm going through like my last year of high school. So like, I feel like every weekend was something. If it was the HBCU college fair, going to Pittsburgh with Nesby, going to Jack and Jill, shout out to Jack and Jill. I was part of Jack and Jill from the time I was 3 up through high school. So 14 years of my life, I was in Jack and Jill. And actually my friend Evan, who I met through Jack and Jill, he was also in Troop 5. So no, we were the only 2 scouts of color in the troop, So me being like one of the few, there were some meetings where like I was the only person of color in the building. I'm sure, I'm the only person of color like in this room, which I never, felt like an outsider or nothing. They welcomed me in with open arms. I always felt like I was one of them. I never felt like it was a us and them kind of thing. So, it's Boy Scouts, we're all here to learn. But yeah, that experience of going through all of that and then just having like such a busy schedule. And I remember I couldn't even stay for the full meetings because I was with the regional team board. I was with the regional team board and Jack and Jill, and we would have conference calls. This was pre-COVID. We would have conference calls on over the phone. Like over the phone, we would have conference calls. So I would have to leave all the troop meetings, which were from 7 to 8:30. I'd have to leave at 8. So I didn't have a troop position my fourth year of high school. My last year of high school, I did not have a troop position. And I was not active in the Order of the Arrow. I'm also a member of the Order of the Arrow. It's all shout out to all the Order of the Arrow members. We ma Tendik, we ma Lausik, with the Hemaway. I think I said that correctly. And I wasn't active in the Order of the Arrow that year because it was just a lot, with all my extracurricular activities. In the midst of all that, I was able to put together a project proposal, get it approved by all the necessary parties, get it, signed and approved by everybody, and then going through my project plan and raising money. And I remember the day after my senior prom, it was that Friday, Memorial Day weekend, 2018. Senior prom was the Friday. The next day, I had to stand outside Stop and Shop in Naugatuck. Shout out to any of my listeners in Naugatuck or in the Naugatuck Valley, Stop and Shop in Naugatuck. It's me and a couple other scouts. We stood outside and we were raising money for my Eagle project. And it's funny because I had lost my voice. Like I remember I had lost my voice. It was the night after prom and I'm there full Class A uniform asking for, people to donate $5, $10, $20 to my Eagle project. Our goal was $500. We made about $350. Maybe I think it was like $348. It was like the final count. So having to fundraise for my own project. And I remember as a Cub Scout, as a Cub Scout having to stand outside of Stop and Shop in Bridgeport and outside of Walgreens and Milford and, Walmart, outside the post office on Boston Avenue in Bridgeport. Shout out to my listeners in Bridgeport. Shout out to any former scouts who were in Pack 597. Rest in peace, Joe Bufford, our Cub Master. He unfortunately passed away a few years back. And yeah, I remember it was tiring, standing outside, trying to get people to buy popcorn and doing that after church, before church service, after service, and then doing the same thing for my Eagle project, asking people to, donate to my Eagle project. We made about I think $349. And some of the materials we were able to get donated from Bushka Lumber. Shout out to Bushka Lumber at the Naugatuck Industrial Complex. Shout out to Tech Air and Bushka Lumber. Ed's Hardware as well. And we were able to purchase what we could. But I remember telling my dad how, we will purchase whatever materials we can, even at Home Depot. Shout out to Home Depot in Waterbury, which is the closest Home Depot to where I live. I feel like in Connecticut, there's a Home Depot every other town. Or even towns that are right next to each other. There's Bridgeport, Stratford, Trumbull. They each have their own Home Depot. We got some of the materials donated. We got some of it we had to buy. Some of it we got donated. And I remember telling my dad, it's we'll purchase what we can, and if there's any more expenses outside of the wood and the screws and the paint and the weatherproof paint that we were able to purchase, anything else that we have to purchase, I will pay for out of my own pocket. It's my project. I will pay for the rest, whatever it is. At the time, I had just gotten my very first debit card. I got my very first debit card senior year of high school. I was receiving an allowance once every 2 weeks, I think. I didn't have a job at the time. Yep, I did not have a job at the time. I was receiving money. I was receiving allowance from my parents. So I told them, I will pay out of my allowance, whatever's left. And project day arrives. In total, it took us 2 days to build 4 wooden A-frame signs. I remember that Saturday. Saturday, I think that was the day when like the majority of the scouts had shown up. And it's important to all the Boy Scouts that are listening. Those of you that are trying to reach Eagle, it's important that you attend other Scouts Eagle projects before you do your own project. Like I had announced my project multiple times. I'd like given sort of updates. Once I got the project proposal approved, I was able to like publicly announce it at the troop meetings, during our opening section, our opening, the troop meeting opening, which I will talk about more in depth in just a minute. I was able to tell them like, my Eagle project is approved. It's on such and such a date. I will have a sign-up sheet, if anybody wants to, help out. And that's the same thing that other scouts in my troop had done. Like there were these 2 twins, Charles and Jamie, and yeah, there were 2 twins in the troop, and they had their Eagle projects, I think, the same weekend. I think one of them, his Eagle project was they rebuilt a shed. It was like they rebuilt like a tool shed at a community garden. And then the other, he redid a picnic grove. We were spreading dirt and spreading mulch at one of the parks in Middlebury. We didn't really do life projects. Life projects weren't really that big of a thing. I think they were kind of on their way out. You didn't have to do life projects. I think it really depends on the troop. Really, in Troop 5, they hit home the Eagle project because that's going to take a lot of time and effort. So I think I started like planning for my Eagle project. I might have still been Star Scout. I might have either still been Star Scout or I might have just gotten Life Scout and then started, Life Scout, which is the rank before Eagle, and then started planning for my Eagle project. So I had attended, I think 3. Yeah, because I did Ethan's Eagle project. He did a concert for the disabled at the Southbury Training School. Shout out to Southbury Training School. Shout out to, again, Ethan Fisk and his, band. Salute. Nate Gibson, all you guys. You're all officially famous. You've been mentioned on Cobbs Corner. So yeah, I attended like at least 3. Those are like the only like 3 Eagle projects I can really remember attending before my own. So I had a decent amount of scouts. I only really needed like maybe 6 to 8 scouts. I think I had said. So some came both days, and then some came only day 1, and some only came on day 2. And like I remember the first day. We get there, like people are still kind of coming in, and then like the first couple scouts showed up, and then I said how like I wanted to wait until everybody got there and then sort of like everybody break off into groups. But then Mr. Cochiola, he and like a couple of the other scouts, they like bum rushed me and they like started twiddling their thumbs in front of me. It's like, okay, everybody start twiddling your thumbs. Like I'm like, all right, here, you guys over there, you guys over here, you guys over there. So that Eagle project was very, very helpful for me. I got to see how a project is done, as my father told me. It's like, love to see a plan come together, which is a reference to Hannibal from the A-Team, I think. So yeah, it was a fun experience. The second day it rained, so I don't think we really started until the afternoon. Like that Sunday, it was raining. in the morning. So we got it done. But I got the experience. I got to experience like what it's like being able to delegate, being able to instruct others and like telling others what to do as opposed to just doing everything yourself. Delegation, leadership. It's definitely, like I said, Boy Scouts, it's taught me a lot about life and discovering who I am, my interests, and things of that nature. So, so yeah, I mean, before I go into this very, very touchy, topic, um, about all the cases of sexual abuse and the lawsuits that have happened in the Boy Scouts of America, I think it's only right that I preface it with how in Troop 5 we started every meeting with the Scout Oath and ended every meeting with the Scout Law. It's only proper, and I invite all Eagle Scouts, all Boy Scouts that are listening, whether you're from Troop 5 or from, in Troop 5 in Middlebury, Connecticut, and those around the country. I invite you all to join me in the reciting of the Scout Oath. All right, Scout sign. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty, to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, and to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. 2. We began every meeting with that Scout Oath, and we ended it with the Scout Law, which is as follows. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. I have lived by that oath and that law to the best of my ability every single day of my life. I've done my best to live, eat, sleep, and breathe the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. In Cub Scouts, I think they call it the Cub Scout Promise. It really breaks my heart to hear about this. I mean, I know I went into like this whole, I just had like a whole just like flashback to my time in scouting, and it was an overall positive experience. As far as I know, there were not any cases of pedophilia or child abuse, child molestation, rape, not in my troop, not in the Mad Rivers District, not in the Connecticut Rivers Council, or the Connecticut Yankee Council for that matter. Connecticut Yankee Council, they were the other council in Connecticut. They were more southern, southern Connecticut, the greater Bridgeport area, the greater New Haven area, Guilford, Groton, that's Connecticut Yankee Council. This documentary exposes how the Boy Scouts of America was harboring, they had all these secrets of folks running the troop, scoutmasters who were supposed to be trusted adults. All right. Parents, you trust scoutmasters, assistant scouters, you leave your kids with the scouters. There's a level of responsibility that the scouters have to protect your children. Boy Scouts of America, youth protection. All right. Cases of scouters, molesting children, molesting and, raping children. And it's just really, really horrific. And, if you or anybody has experienced anything like that in the Boy Scouts of America, I'm very, very sorry for any negative experiences that any of you might have had in the BSA. And just know that these disgusting individuals, right, and that's the only way that I can really aptly describe these individuals, these disgusting grown men, all right, who were, doing really horrific, inhumane things to these children, boys, all right. No amount of money, no amount of lawsuits can heal, can replace the decades of trauma that these children, many of them grown men, many of them fathers who have kids in scouting, all right. No amount of money can replace the pain and the hurt, the years of trauma, of not being able to talk about it. That many of these, boys who became young men, who then became their own men, and many of which who have sons in scouting now. No amount of money will ever replace the pain and the hurt of when it happened and not being able to talk to anybody about it. Want them to go to a trusted adult. Well, really, the scoutmaster is supposed to be the trusted adult. The scoutmaster, the assistant scoutmaster is supposed to be that trusted adult. Maybe they're not comfortable with going to their parents about it. And then whenever there was a case of, sexual assault, it was like Boy Scouts of America was like, we need to sweep this under the rug. We can't let this damage our brand. It was all about covering their own ass. All right. Pardon the language. They were covering their own asses. We got to maintain the brand. We got to maintain the brand. We got to maintain our positive image. We got to maintain that we are an organization of Judeo-Christian values. All right. And on the surface, yeah, sure, that all sounds good. It all sounds good. It's like, oh yeah, Judeo-Christian values and youth protection and all that jazz. And, and even though the Boy Scouts of America is technically a secular organization, all right, they do have ties to various religions. I think they have, now granted, myself as a Christian, I never did any of those like religious like badges. Like there's certain like badges and certificates you could get. I think they have one for like every denomination of Christianity. They've got, I think one for like Judaism, for Islam, Hinduism, what have you. And God is put in the the word God does show up in the Scout Oath, as well as the last point of the Scout Law, reverent, reverent towards God. So God does come up. And they really tried to shift the blame away from pedophilia, like grown men who were just pedophiles who were sexually attracted to boys. They wanted to say like, oh, well, let's not allow for openly gay scouts. I think there was like the gay scout ban that happened in, I forget the exact year, but it's all in the documentary. Definitely go check it out. Documentary can probably, go way in depth, go places that I can't really, go with this platform. I recommend you guys check this documentary out yourselves. But I said, we need to like ban gay scouts, and they were affiliated with the Mormon Church, or the Latter-day Saints as they're commonly referred to now. And no disrespect to anybody who is a part of the Catholic Church, or I am teaching at a Catholic high school. We see Mormons here in Chuk as well. I got nothing but respect for Mormons and for Latter-day Saints. Me personally, I love everybody. All right. But there was the gay scout ban, and I remember gay scout ban, and then also the gay scout leader ban. They thought it was a case of, like, oh, well, we shouldn't allow homosexuality in Boy Scouts, and it doesn't align with Judeo-Christian values. And I'll admit, Christianity has been historically kind of homophobic at times. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been homophobic at times, and so ban on gay scouts. I remember 2014, same year I joined scouting. Right, I think it was February of 2014 was when I joined Troop 5. I think January 1st, 2014 was the year. That was when the ban on openly gay Boy Scouts ended. The ban ended. They ended the ban on gay scouts. And I think the question was, will they allow for openly gay scout leaders? Eventually, the ban on openly gay scout leaders was lifted, I think in 2019, I think. And since then, the Mormon Church, they have cut ties with the Boy Scouts of America. And what might have been a red flag, going back to the cases, was a lot of these scoutmasters who were recruiting scouts. Like there was one case, I think it was in Louisiana, in New Orleans. It was a single mother who was approached by the scoutmasters, all of which were unmarried men, all unmarried men who wanted to recruit their son to join the Boy Scouts. And there were cases of like scouts sleeping over at scoutmasters' houses. And so I think that going forward, Boy Scouts of America, all right, I implore you, the organization that I love, all right, Boy Scouts America or Scouts BSA, whatever you guys are known as now, because you guys have added girls and you guys brought girls in the Boy Scouts, which is a choice that I personally do not agree with. I will say it on the air. I do not think that the Boy Scouts should have brought girls in. That's not the solution. That's, again, you're just kind of beating around the bush and you're not directly addressing the problem. You need to reevaluate youth protection. How do you prevent things like this from happening again? Reevaluate it. Create a hotline where the kids can anonymously report, sexual assault, sexual abuse, because these are very serious things. Create a hotline and reevaluate, like, what are the red flags? It's like the scoutmaster wants to host a sleepover at his house, like, now nothing like that ever happened in my Boy Scout troop. So now I am fortunate enough that nothing like that ever happened to me, or as far as I know, didn't happen to anybody like I said, not in my troop, not in my district, not in my council. As far as I know, all right. I haven't heard anything bad come out of, Troop 5 or any other troops. And sure, I mean, the lawsuits have, been, national lawsuit. I remember hearing that each council needed to sell one of their properties. And I know during my time in Cub Scouts, the Cub Scout pack I was a part of, Pack 597, again, rest in peace, Mr. Bufford. We went camping at Deer Lake in Killingsworth, Connecticut. It was owned by the Connecticut Yankee Council. I remember they had like a whole fishing derby. It was a whole thing. Like there was like a fishing derby, and that's actually a fun story. It's a funny story for another episode. But with the whole like lawsuit and the BSA declaring bankruptcy, there is no more Deer Lake. Deer Lake is not owned by the Connecticut Yankee Council anymore. It's a public camping ground. I don't think Connecticut Rivers Council, I know Camp Mattatuck is where my troop did most of our camping. It's where we went to summer camp every summer. And I think Camp Mattatuck is still a Boy Scout scouting reservation, still Boy Scout camp. And yeah, but I don't think the Connecticut Rivers Council had to sell any of their scouting reservations. But I remember 2020, I was working with the census. I remember driving around in my dad's old Hyundai Santa Fe, which we no longer have. And I remember listening to the radio, hearing that commercial on the radio. It's like, have you or someone you know been abused, been sexually assaulted by somebody in the Boy Scouts of America? You know? So it's like you hear about these things, and they're very serious. And I hope and pray that as an organization we can heal from it. And I think that there's a responsibility. Filmmakers, you have a responsibility. Even with my platform, even with Cobbs Corner, I have a responsibility to talk about the good as well as the bad. In terms of Boy Scouts, I've had nothing but positive experiences, but I have to acknowledge that there is that dark side that they hid for years. And filmmakers, documentarians, you have a responsibility to tell the truth. I kind of talked about this when I was interviewing Amy Baker, who had the documentary She. You have a responsibility to tell the truth, objective truth, right? The good as well as the bad, and not be so focused on like, oh, we need to protect our brand, therefore we need to tell half truths, therefore we need to lie in order to protect our brand and cover our own ass. That's not. I would argue that is not. All right. That is neither Judeo-Christian values nor is that an American value, right? We think we're so great. We think we're such a great country, and we think BSA. We think it's such a great organization. It is when we live up to our values. United States of America, when we live up to our values, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, telling the truth, doing what's right. Those are our values as a nation. Those are our values as an organization, the Boy Scouts of America. Let's live up to it. Let's live up to it. And that is all that I will say on that topic. This live stream is not over. I am going to run to the restroom real quick. All right, and I'm back. All right. So so yeah, I mean that's Scout's honor. I definitely wanted to spend the majority of today's episode on the secret files, secret files of the BSA, because I think that is something that just needs to be talked about, needs to be brought up. So not going to end this episode on a downer. That's Scout's Honor. Check it out on Netflix. Viewer discretion advised. It does deal with some really, really not fun topics, very serious topics. All right. We do tend to joke around and have fun here on Cobbs Corner, but I need to address the elephant in the room. I had to address the serious side of you know that. So I also watched the movie Marshall. Marshall is a movie about Thurgood Marshall. It stars Chadwick Boseman, R.I.P. And it talks about, and it covers a case that Thurgood Marshall did in my home state of Connecticut back in like 1940. It was, I think, state of Connecticut versus Joseph Spell. Joseph Spell, who was a chauffeur that was accused of raping and attempting to kill the lady that he chauffeured for. He was accused of raping her and tying her up and throwing her body off a bridge into the water. And it's a really, really good movie. It's got some familiar faces. It's got Sterling K. Brown as Joseph Spell, Josh Gad as Sam Friedman, along with, of course, Chadwick Boseman as Thurgood Marshall. It's a movie that I saw in theaters back in 2017. I saw it with my school. Granted, it was a school trip, so everybody kept on talking. The movie did come out, I think, November 2017, so like 3 months before Black Panther. I think Chadwick Boseman, everybody knows Chadwick Boseman for playing Black Panther, but I think his roles in movies like, people also know him as Jackie Robinson from 42. He also portrayed Jackie Robinson, as well as he was James Brown in Get On Up, and I think Marshall is one of his lesser known movies. It's like his lesser known movies in his, albeit short, acting career. And then of course, 2018 Black Panther. 2020 he was in the Spike Lee joint, The Five Bloods, which I never finished watching. And then the very last movie that he did came out after he died. Ma Rainey's. He plays a trumpeter in this other Netflix film that I might watch at a later time. This was, I think, more of an independent film that I feel like did not do as well in the state of Connecticut as it should have. Case with Thurgood Marshall, pre-Brown versus Board of Education. This was 1940 when he was working with the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And he took this case. He was defending clients who he believed were being accused of crimes based on their race. Accused of crimes based on their race. That was his forte. So he takes his case in Connecticut, which was a conservative state at the time. This is 83 years ago. And yeah, different time, 1940. So Overall, it's a good movie. It's got some familiar faces, some faces that you've seen before. Highly recommend that you guys check this movie out on Netflix. It does star. There's one scene where Juicy Smollett, Jesse Smollett, all right, the now infamous Jesse Smollett, stars as Langston Hughes. Yep, he stars as Langston Hughes in the movie for like one scene. Jesse Smollett. Again, this movie came out 2017, so but check it out. It's on Netflix. While you're at it, you should also check out Race. This movie about Jesse Owens from 2016. Movie that came out in 2016. And it stars Stephen James as Jesse Owens, along with Jeremy Irons, Shamir Anderson, David Cross. That's Cross with a K. William Hurt, Eli Gorey, the late William Hurt, God rest his soul. Shanice Banton. So it's got some familiar faces. Jason Sudeikis. Jason Sudeikis, who I'm used to seeing him on Saturday Night Live. I'm used to seeing him as Ted Lasso, like having like comedy roles. So we got to see Jason Sudeikis' range, him doing a serious role as Coach Larry Snyder. He was the coach who coached Jesse Owens at Ohio State University. So, and Jesse Owens, him going over to Berlin in 1936. So this Nazi Germany, this like the height of the Nazi regime. World War II hadn't started yet. This was 3 years before World War II had officially started. And he went before the entire world, before Adolf Hitler, before Hitler's Third Reich, before President Roosevelt, and the entire world. And he was winning races, and he was winning, the 100. I think back then they used yards, so like the 400 meter or yard relay, the long jump, the triple jump, the long jump, and the 100-meter dash, 200-meter dash, And people were telling them not to go. People were telling them not to go because as a way of showing support for the Jews that were suffering in the Holocaust over there. And there were actually two American members of Team USA that were Jewish. And so I liked how like they dove into the sort of duality of like Jesse Owens. Ultimately, he decided to go. He went through the qualifications. He qualified, and he decided to go. But going through that whole duality of like, should I go? Should I not go? Should I go and like surprise everybody and shake up the world? Go before the entire world, the entire IOC, and everybody, and the Nazi regime, and prove them all wrong. Or do I stay in the United States and like boycott the Olympics as a way of showing support, not only for my brothers and sisters who are suffering here in the States, but also the Jews that are suffering in the Holocaust? Because let's not forget, and I know I got some listeners in Germany, shout out to my listeners in Germany, or Deutschland, danke for your support. I promise I will learn German one of these days. Hitler, he was a racist. He was a white supremacist. He refused to meet with Jesse Owens after Jesse Owens won the gold medal. So, and then sort of the dichotomy, the duality of like sports and politics and how they should remain separate. And the American Olympic Committee and Avery Brundage, who's played by Jeremy Irons, and Jeremiah Mahoney, played by the late William Hurt, and their whole sort of back and forth about like should the United States, although we don't approve of, although we were at peace with Germany at the time, we didn't formally declare war on, we didn't declare war on Germany until 1941, I think, after Pearl Harbor. So World War II had already been going on for 2 years, but 1936, the world was technically at peace. World War II hadn't started yet. The U.S. and Nazi Germany, we were technically in a state of peace. Like, we weren't at war yet, although we didn't approve of Hitler, and his Nazi regime. We didn't approve of them at all. So it was that sort of duality of like keeping sports and politics separate, but then at what point is it necessary for us to consider our image, and what kind of statement are we sending by going to the Olympics? But they were debating, like, should the U.S. even participate in the Olympics? And let's not forget that I want to say it was 1986, maybe. Like, in the 80s, there was a boycott Olympics. There were like the Olympics that were supposed to be held. I think the Summer Olympics, they were supposed to be held somewhere in Russia. I forget the exact city. In, I think, 1986, but then the United States and a bunch of our allies had boycotted the Olympics. We had a protest Olympics. It was in protest for the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. So, they say that the Olympics is a time of like neutrality, and that the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, is neutral. It's not get involved in any, national politics. It's a time of peace, for peaceful, friendly competition between nations, despite what might be going on in the world. Because again, the world keeps spinning. Things happen. Things happen in the world, and the world keeps spinning, and there are things that happen that are outside of our control. The IOC, for the most part, has tried to stay out of geopolitics, has tried to stay out of other countries' affairs and that sort of thing. And the Berlin Olympics did still happen. So I like how they kind of touched on that, but then really also never really took the focus of the movie away from Jesse Owens. Really, it's a biopic about Jesse Owens, and it's a damn good one. I recommend you all check out this movie. I'm thinking about like having a playlist on YouTube and having sort of like the Black Lives Matter collection, which I realize is something that Netflix has. Netflix has a Black Lives Matter collection. I might put together my own, like just kind of like my like list of like my, BLM go-tos, movies from Black directors, movies about Black heroes, movies like Race, like Marshall, movies like Malcolm X by Spike Lee. Just having that Black Lives Matter collection, Selma, and not having to wait until February to put mine together, because Black history is made every day. Every month is Black History Month. Every month is Black History Month. So you should all check out Race. It is streaming on Netflix. Check out the movie Idiocracy. Idiocracy. Oh, man. Movies from like 2006, I think. Yep, 2006. It stars Luke Wilson, Maya Rudolph, Terry Crews. Terry Crews. It's got a lot of really funny people from like the mid 2000s, and really it's sort of, I guess, a cautionary tale against mediocrity. They don't. I have a feeling like they don't know how right they were back in like the 2000s, because I do feel like today people are kind of I worry about my generation and about the technology. Is it dumbing us down? Is it sort of, are we headed towards, now granted, Idiocracy, it takes place like 500 years in the future, 2505, and nobody speaks like regular English anymore, and like social services, and nobody drinks water anymore. I mean, check it out. Like, it's a really funny movie, but I feel like it's also a bit of a cautionary tale against the rise of pretty much ignorance being accepted as like the social norm. My worry is that that's the way we're headed. I mean, this movie, 2006, it had a limited theatrical release. It was a movie that had a limited theatrical release, but it stars some really funny people. Luke Wilson, Maya Rudolph, Terry Crews as President Camacho. Yeah, check it out. Cautionary tale. We got to read more. Got to read more. Sorry, I'm just like going through my notes that I have here. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I recently rewatched Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I saw it in theaters December 2016. Saw it in 3D. Fun movie. Fun Star Wars movie. I liked it. It explains how they got the Death Star plans. I mean, the movie ends probably 5 minutes before A New Hope. Introduced us to Andor. Introduced us to Jyn Erso. So who knows? Maybe we'll see Jyn Erso again in a flashback. Spoiler warning. Spoiler warning if you have not yet seen Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Spoiler warning. All right. Final warning. The entire team dies in the end. We see Darth Vader. We see Director Krennic. We see, the Death Star plans. Mads Mikkelsen. The acting's on point. Donnie Yen just being Donnie Yen. I mean that in a good way. Donnie Yen just being phenomenal as an actor. And yeah, I still think that it's important that you watch A New Hope first. Watch all the Star Wars movies in order of release, not in chronological order. You have to watch Rogue One. You have to watch A New Hope before you watch Rogue One, so that way you can understand the full context. Because A New Hope provides context for Rogue One. Like, the original trilogy provides context for the prequel. So now you know the world in which the prequels exist. You know what events haven't happened yet and what events, that trilogy is going to lead up to. Even with the sequel trilogy, it's like, now that you've seen the original trilogy and the prequels, you know what events have transpired so far. So you know what worlds you are living in now with the sequel trilogy. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It was the first Star Wars standalone film. I want to see more of these Star Wars standalone films. Side characters, a lot of really fun adventures. There's like so many more like stories that can be told with Star Wars. Plus, we have the technology now. Like, the technology that we have now, a quarter of a century ago when they were making Phantom Menace, they didn't have. A lot of this, the ILM, image, light, and magic, the technology that they're using to make the shows like Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett. We didn't have that technology in the 90s. They definitely didn't have it in the 70s and 80s when George Lucas was making the original Star Wars trilogy. So I feel like because we have the technology now, there's so many more stories. There's so many more different places that the Star Wars saga can go. So I'm excited about the future of the Star Wars saga. Check out Rogue One, a Star Wars story on Disney+. Also check out Star Wars The Last Jedi. Star Wars The Last Jedi, as I said earlier in this episode, it is the most divisive Star Wars movie. It has divided the fandom greatly. I saw it in theaters December 2017, my senior year of high school. The scene where Yoda said, "Failure is the greatest teacher." The theme of failure is not something that has ever been explored in Star Wars. So both Luke as well as Yoda being able to acknowledge that, yes, at the height of their power, the Jedi did fail. They allowed Darth Sidious to rise to power, and acknowledging that failure, but also saying how failure is the greatest teacher. From that failure, what did we learn? You know, how can the Jedi be reborn going forward? What mistakes have we made? How do we improve? And be willing to embrace those failures, because those failures are our greatest teachers. You learn the most from your losses. All right. There can be no success. There can be no long-term success without short-term, temporary failure. Failure is your greatest teacher. You have two choices. You can lose, you can fail. You have two choices. You can stay down and accept defeat, throw in the towel, say, I give up. Or you can analyze that failure, say, what did I do wrong? You can get back up again. You can dust yourself off and try again. If at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You can dust it off and try again. Try again. And you can also watch Star Wars: The Last Jedi on Disney Plus. I'm kind of running through these at this point. I mean, we're coming up on 2 hours. All right. Recently, let's see. Today is the 17th. 6 days ago. Now, to the adults listening, to the Gen Xers, and maybe even to the millennials that are listening, you all probably have more personal anecdotes of where you were that morning of September the 11th, 2001, when America was under attack. You know, those of you who are from the United States, maybe even some of those, maybe even some of you who are abroad, you know, some of you who are maybe not from the United States or weren't in the United States at that time. I'm sure you guys have more personal stories or personal anecdotes. I didn't bring that up in class, you know, because I figured I don't teach like U.S. history or anything like that, or world history. When I was in school, we had started, like, I think the first time I heard something about a terrorist attack in New York, I was maybe in like third grade, fourth grade. Fifth grade was the first time that they actually sat us down and we had an honest conversation about 9/11, what happened, who was involved, you know, fifth grade. Because you can't tell a bunch of second and third graders about a terrorist attack in New York. They, you know, run home crying. I mean, even George Bush, you know, he was in that kindergarten classroom reading My Pet Goat. And this is footage. It was in the documentary Fahrenheit 9/11, which I watched in high school. Secret Service is coming in and out of that classroom. They're saying, like, a plane has hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center. A plane has hit the South Tower. America's under attack. Sir, we need to leave. And then Bush just, you know, and of course, you know, he's in a classroom. He probably didn't want to, you know, scare anybody or anything. But, you know, he's just sitting there with this look of like guilt, fear, anger, all at once, thinking like, is it my fault? Is there nothing I could have done to stop this? You know, what are the American people going to think of me after this, now that this has happened? Is it too late? So yeah, you know, fifth grade, that was the first time that they actually sat us down. We had our honest conversation about 9/11, what happened, who was involved. Every year there's a documentary on YouTube that you can find called Boat Lift. And Boat Lift is a documentary by Tom Hanks. It's only about like maybe 20 minutes or less. And in the documentary, it interviews the boat captains that went over to the island of Manhattan and evacuated the island of Manhattan after the towers had fallen. You know, They looked like zombies. It was, covered in dust. It was, the city of Manhattan. You know, well, the island of Manhattan and the city of New York was covered in dust and blood. It was horrific. But every year I watch that documentary as a reminder of those heroes who, in the midst of this 9/11 terrorist attack, who in the face of terrorism, we didn't know if they were going to attack again. Every plane was grounded. As far as we know, there were 4 planes. There were 2 planes that hit New York. One plane hit the Pentagon, and there was a 4th plane where the passengers actually fought back against the terrorists and crash landed the plane in Pennsylvania, killing everyone on board. As far as we know, that those were the 4 planes that were involved in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. We don't know if maybe there were more. Every plane was grounded instantly. Um, there was a thought of, you go to, you take your boat into the island of Manhattan. What if they attack again? It's like, hey, that was something that they would have had to live with. And every year I just remember, in the midst of like all the countless lives that were lost on that very horrific day, and the entire country shut down. The entire country went into like lockdown for an entire day. I was only 8 months old, so I don't remember it. I don't remember when it happened, and I'm sure millennials and Gen Xers, maybe even baby boomers, have those memories of like where you were when it happened, and that's something that I think stays with you forever. Um, but I just remind myself of the positive that came out of that. In the midst of terrorism, we've got all these boats, party boats, private boats, tugboats, ferry boats, all swarming the island of Manhattan and getting these people off the island. As far as they knew, they wanted off the island. Evacuating the island of Manhattan, quickest evacuation. It was quicker than the evacuation of Dunkirk during World War II. So every year I always remind myself of the 9/11 heroes. So yeah. Check out Boatlift if you haven't already. I watch it every year on 9/11. So I'll end this episode because I know we're coming up on 2 hours. I'll end this episode with 2 trailers. Trailer for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This movie, it actually looks pretty decent. Looks pretty decent. Again, with the upcoming change, the change in leadership and the upcoming like DCU reset, I don't know how relevant this movie is even gonna be going forward. It's got Jason Momoa. I don't think they really showed Mara. Amber Heard is going to be reprising her role as Mara in this movie. The movie has that outside controversy, the Amber Heard controversy from last year, and there were like three different sets of reshoots. I heard, 3 different sets of reshoots. So I really didn't have a whole lot of faith for this movie when somebody picked it. Somebody picked it during the Fantasy Movie League, which I feel like I can't even talk about anymore because 2 of my picks have been pushed back to next year. So we had said how like this was a movie that probably wasn't even going to come out this year, but it is. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is coming out December 20th, 2023, and I'm just looking at the cast on Google. Amber Heard is reprising her role as Mara. My guess is maybe they might have edited some of her parts out. I don't know. Jason Momoa as Aquaman, yes. Patrick Wilson will be returning as Orm, Arthur's brother. Nicole Kidman reprising her role as Atlanta. Yahya Abdul Mateen II, Black Manta. He might be. Now, again, I'm on the other side of the planet. There's no movie theater on this island. I have to fly to Guam. I have to go to Palau. I got to go to Pohnpei if I want to go see a movie in theaters. So I'm most likely not seeing this movie in theaters. But once it's available online, you best believe I will be watching this movie, reviewing it, giving you guys my thoughts. Same goes for Blue Beetle. I know Blue Beetle shows up online, I think September 26th, I think. So soon, another 9 days, and then it'll be available to rent online. But yeah, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom comes out December 20th. Willem Dafoe as Neudis Volko, Dolph Lundgren, Tamora Morrison. Tamora Morrison we saw in the trailer. I don't think we saw Willem Dafoe or Randall Park in the trailer, though. So it's going to be a very, very good movie, is my prediction. But yeah. Last bit of information, The Continental. Watch The Continental this Friday on Peacock, September 22nd. This is sort of not a prequel to John Wick, but it takes place in 1970s New York, and it's about the New York Continental Hotel. I think we see a young Winston, a young Sharon. Young Winston will be played by Colin Waddell. Mel Gibson as a character named Cormac. Hunter Point Dujour will be playing a character Miles. So got some old faces, some new faces. It's gonna be very interesting. Ayomide Adegan, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that name, will be playing a young Sharon who, spoiler warning, if you have not yet seen John Wick Chapter 4, log off now. You've been warned. John Wick Chapter 4, Sharon dies, and unfortunately, the actor Lance Reddick, he passed away just a week before the John Wick Chapter 4 came out. He was only 60 years old. I think he died peacefully of natural causes, if I'm not mistaken. So The Continental, nice that we get to see a window into the John Wick universe, as well as Ballerina, the movie, which comes out in March. And I'm interested to see where they go with this. It's supposed to be like a 3-part, like limited series, like a 3-part event within the John Wick universe. So I'm actually excited for The Continental, streaming this Friday on Peacock. That is all that I've got for this very lengthy episode of Talk Time. The episodes of Talk Time, they might be closer to 2 hours now, because you got to understand it's a bi-weekly show instead of weekly. Because again, I mentioned in the last episode that every other Sunday we go to Pfeffin, which is one of the other islands. So that's where I'll be next week. So no episode next week. Just a reminder to any new listeners. For those of you who have listened to who made it to the very end of this episode and listened to all of the topics that we covered today in this episode, I greatly appreciate it. Check out episode 57, my review of Rocky V. That is out now. My review of Rocky Balboa is on the way. Thank you so much to all of you for liking my videos, commenting, subscribing. If you like what you heard today and found it informative, be sure to give us a review wherever you're listening, whatever podcast platform you're listening from, and be sure to give us a review, preferably 5 stars, and turn on those and click that bell. Turn on those post notifications, whether you're listening to this on YouTube or on any podcast listening platform. Click that bell so you get notified when I post. And follow me on Instagram at real_mechanical_engineer. Follow Cobbs Corner on Instagram at Cobbs_corner_podcast. Follow Cobbs Corner on TikTok at Cobbs Corner Podcast, all lowercase, no spaces. All those links are in the show notes below. Suggestions for movies or TV shows, content that you want me to cover, all you got to do is email me at cobbscornerpodcast@gmail.com. Again, everything is in the show notes below. That is all I've got for this edition of Talk Time. I hope you guys enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner. We are your one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture. As always, I will talk to all of you in the next episode. Peace.